Hi, my name's Lynette Xanders. I'm the founder of Wild Alchemy. Today I'm going to share the story of how I left agency life and built a thriving freelance strategy career. So if you've been thinking about making the leap from corporate or agency leadership into freelance work, you'll see what's possible and how to avoid the mistakes most people make. So let's first talk about why I decided to leave agency life. I believe that no one retires from an ad agency unless your name's on the door. So I always knew that I would have to leave agency life. It was just a matter of when. I think the only sense of security we really have is having your own business card in your back pocket. But it really came down to 9/11, and I had a 1-year-old, and I decided that I was tired of trying to balance baby and work that was almost 24/7. And so I always tell people I ran away from home. I went to the mountain, and I told my agency that I wanted to go freelance, and they were always so kind to me. So they gave me my first job, remote. So yeah, I was doing remote like 2001. Good luck with that. But I knew it always had to happen. So we picked up and moved to the mountain. She was 1 year old. The fears and doubts that I had are, the same as everybody. You think you're going to be homeless. Like, how am I going to feed myself? And so I ended up having a rockin' plan B. If you have a rockin' plan B, nothing bad can happen. So when I was kind of, okay, so how do I prevent myself from being homeless? I was like, oh, well, if I could pay off a mortgage, then I wouldn't be homeless. And I'm like, yeah, but that's 30 years. So how big a place qualifies? So I was like, could I buy a condo? Could I buy a little cabin? And I was like, what if I redefined home? So home was basically something that I could sleep in with my big dogs and kid and lock it. So I was like, okay, I just described an SUV, which grew to an RV, and I still to this day have I call it a pack for evacuation vehicle. So my fears and doubts were that I wasn't going to be able to make enough money to support us. So I found kind of a way around that, if you will. So once I took that off the table, I didn't have another excuse. So it was, I am unemployed at the beginning of every month. But it's if you work for an agency or a corporation, you could be let go at any moment. And they don't have to give you 2 weeks notice. Sorry, just to put that bug in your ear. So yes, there are fears and doubts, but I think security is an illusion, and you got to make your own way. The skills that I had at the agency that carried over into freelancing were all the same. I had my craft. You got to be good at what you do. I'm a strategist, so you solve problems and figure out, which way we need to go. But I think the ones that amplified were kind of account service, like knowing what needs to happen by when, doing work back schedules, so I knew what points need to be hit and when the meetings needed to happen with the client, in order to make the timeline. I needed to learn more about the financial piece of it and invoicing and take out your taxes. Hello, nobody told me that. Make sure you bill for that. And it was all relationships. So most people, I think what they get wrong when they go freelance is they don't have an off-ramp and an on-ramp. So I worked both jobs, my freelance company and at the agency, for a couple of months, just to make sure that I could feed myself while I started networking, while I started getting my website set up. I think some people just kind of flip a switch And then you have so much pressure from your freelance company to make money. So little off ramp, little on ramp. Make sure you bill enough for your taxes, and then thinking that the work is just going to come. It really is a process of keeping on people's radars. So I have worked with people for years and years and years, and then I take them to lunch and they're like, "Oh, hey, I've got this project I want to ask you about." And I was like, "If I hadn't taken you to lunch, would you have thought to call me?" And they were like, actually, no, it's kind of recency. It's whoever's on my, radar in that moment. So I think what I learned over time was that I had to stay on people's radars, even if they knew me and even if they knew me well, and even if we had worked together before. So that was kind of a new piece of information for me. And if I had, the best piece of advice, I will say, I had two pieces of advice that I got before I went freelance. And one was, if your toes don't curl, you aren't asking for enough money. I think we undervalue greatly, especially women, entrepreneurs. And the other was to get help. And I was like, yeah, but I can't afford help. And they were like, you can't afford not to get help. So the biggest mistake, I think, is trying to think you can do it all yourself. So I hired a director of sanity, was my word, and I found her on Craigslist at the time. And I was like, I need someone to do all the stuff that I don't like to do, because you're never going to be good at stuff you don't like to do. So I wanted someone to do my bookkeeping. I wanted somebody to book my travel. And I made a list of all the stuff that I hated doing. And I put that in an ad. And I asked for a chaos wrangler and a mom. Make sure I'm fed. Make sure the lights stay on. And I actually had multiple people apply. And I was like, I can pay you $10 an hour and only probably a couple hours a week. And she was like, as long as I don't have to ever be in front of clients, perfectly happy to do it. And we worked together for 15 years. But I think it really helped me to get things off my plate, like invoicing and books and tax prep and 800 number calls and returning things. And I think a lot of women I work with anyway, they give people who work for them the juiciest parts of the job, thinking that it's going to make them happy and like the job and like them. But people like to do different things. So even if you give them the best part of the job, they're not going to like that as much as you do. So keep the best parts, keep the parts that you do well, and then outsource. Ask people to do the stuff you don't like to do, require them to do it, if maybe they're children or husbands, and then hire it out. Find a way to get that stuff off your plate that you don't like to do. I think that was the biggest piece of advice that made the biggest difference for me going freelance. So I've got, lots of advice. I've been doing this for a long time. But to learn more about my process and how I help creative leaders and agencies thrive, visit wildalchemy.com.